The Galactic Council had defeated hundreds of civilizations. They had ended wars that lasted centuries. They had crushed rebellions before they could grow. Across the galaxy, their power seemed absolute. That was why nobody expected a single human ambassador to walk into the council chamber and make a warning that would soon shake the stars. The chamber was larger than most cities. Thousands of representatives sat in rows that climbed high above the central floor. Bright lights reflected from crystal walls. Huge screens displayed the symbol of the council. At the center stood Ambassador Ethan Ward of Earth. He looked calm, almost too calm. Many of the alien leaders noticed it. The council had just finished voting. The result was clear. Earth had been declared a threat to galactic stability. Humanity would either accept military control or face invasion from most species. Such a decision would have caused panic. But Ethan did not panic. He simply looked around the chamber. His eyes moved from one representative to another. Then he spoke. "Humanity accepts your decision." A low murmur spread through the chamber. Some representatives looked surprised. Others looked pleased. The council chairman leaned forward. He belonged to a powerful species known for conquering entire sectors. "So Earth surrenders?" he asked. Ethan shook his head. "No." The chamber became silent. The chairman frowned. "Then what are you saying?" Ethan took a slow breath. "We accept that you have made your choice." The chairman's expression hardened. "And your response?" For the first time, Ethan's voice became serious. "Turn your fleets around." Several representatives laughed immediately. Others exchanged confused looks. The chairman himself smiled. "Is that a threat, human?" Ethan remained calm. "No." "Then explain yourself." The human ambassador looked directly at the chairman. "It is a warning." The laughter grew louder. Some representatives openly mocked him. One delegate even stood up. "Earth has one small defense fleet and outdated military technology." More laughter followed. Another representative joined in. "You expect the entire council to fear humanity?" The room filled with amusement, but Ethan did not react. His calmness slowly became unsettling. Eventually the chairman raised a hand. The chamber grew quiet again. "What exactly are we supposed to fear?" For the first time, something changed in Ethan's expression. Not fear, not anger, something else. Something closer to concern. "You are asking the wrong question," he said. The chairman narrowed his eyes. "And what is the right question?" Ethan answered immediately. "You should be asking what waits beyond Earth." A brief silence followed. Then the chamber exploded with laughter once again. The chairman leaned back in his seat. "This meeting is over," Ethan nodded slowly. "As you wish." Without another word, he turned and walked toward the exit. No one stopped him. No one listened. And no one noticed the look exchanged between the human ambassador and the small group of human officers waiting near the doorway. It was not the look of people preparing for war. It was the look of people hoping disaster could still be avoided. Hours later, the council officially approved Operation Iron Dawn, the largest invasion force assembled in decades. 50,000 warships gathered near the edge of council space. Their mission was simple: travel to the Sol system, force Earth's surrender, remove humanity's government, and place the planet under council authority. The fleet commander, High Admiral Varric, watched the final preparations from the bridge of his flagship. The massive vessel stretched for kilometers. Its weapons alone could destroy continents. Varric felt confident. No species had ever resisted a force this large. A communications officer approached him. "Admiral, all fleets are ready," Varric nodded. "Begin the operation." Across space, thousands of engines ignited. The invasion fleet jumped into faster-than-light travel. The journey toward Earth had begun. Back on Earth, people watched the news with concern. Governments prepared emergency plans. Military forces entered high alert. But strangely, humanity's leaders appeared calmer than expected. Many citizens noticed it. Some found it reassuring. Others found it disturbing, because it felt as though humanity's leaders knew something they were not saying. 3 days later, the invasion fleet reached the outer edge of the Sol system. Everything appeared normal. Sensors detected planets, asteroids, comets, and distant stars. No enemy ships appeared. No hidden defenses were found. Admiral Varric smiled. The human warning had been meaningless. "Proceed toward Earth," he ordered. The fleet advanced. Thousands of warships moved deeper into the system. Then something happened. A sensor officer suddenly froze. His face lost all color. "Admiral ... double quotes," he whispered. Varric turned. "What is it?" The officer stared at his screen. I don't understand." The bridge became tense. Varric stepped forward. "Report." The officer swallowed hard. "There is something ahead." The main display activated. At first the crew thought it was an error. A dark shape filled part of the screen. Then another appeared, and another, and another. Objects larger than planets drifted silently in the darkness beyond the fleet's path. Nobody knew what they were. Nobody knew where they had come from. And according to every database in the galaxy, they should not exist. The bridge fell silent. For the first time since entering the Sol system, Admiral Varric felt fear. Then every alarm aboard the flagship activated at once. And before anyone could react, the entire fleet vanished without a battle, without an explosion, without a single distress call. One moment 50,000 warships were there. The next moment they were gone. 3 days later, inside the Galactic Council chamber, emergency alarms echoed through the building. A transmission had arrived from the missing fleet. It was only 3 seconds long, and after watching it, every officer in the room turned pale, because the final image showed something impossible. Something standing in the darkness behind the fleet, watching them. The council chamber had never been this quiet. Thousands of representatives stared at the frozen image on the giant screen. The final transmission from the missing fleet remained displayed before them. A dark figure stood in the void of space. No ship, no station, no known life form, just a shape, watching. Even the most experienced military officers could not explain it. The image had been analyzed hundreds of times. Every frame had been examined. Every signal had been checked. Nothing suggested the transmission was fake. The figure had been real. And somehow it had appeared moments before 50,000 warships vanished. The council chairman felt a chill move through his body. He hated that feeling. For decades he had controlled entire sectors of the galaxy. Fear was something other species experienced, not him. Yet the image refused to leave his mind. "What are our scientists saying?" he asked. A senior analyst stood. "They cannot identify the object." The chairman frowned. "Object?" The analyst nodded. "We are not even sure it was alive." Murmurs spread across the chamber. That answer only made things worse. If it was not alive, then what was it? The analyst continued. "The figure does not match any known species, machine, weapon, or structure in council records." The room grew even quieter for the first time. Representatives began remembering the human ambassador's warning. "Turn your fleets around." At the time it had sounded ridiculous. Now it sounded very different. Far away on Earth, Ambassador Ethan Ward sat inside a secure government facility. A large screen showed the emergency meeting taking place inside the council chamber. Several human officers stood nearby. None of them looked surprised. One officer crossed his arms. They finally saw it. Ethan nodded slowly. "Yes." Another officer looked worried. "Do you think they will listen now?" Ethan stared at the screen for several seconds. No. The room became silent. Everyone knew why. The council was powerful. And powerful people often believed they could solve every problem with force. Meanwhile, panic was spreading across council space. Families demanded answers. News networks talked about nothing else. Military experts argued constantly. Entire fleets did not simply disappear. It was impossible. At least it was supposed to be impossible. The mystery became even worse when rescue ships arrived at the location where the fleet had vanished. There was nothing there, no debris, no damaged vessels, no escape pods, no bodies, nothing. It was as if 50,000 warships had never existed. The rescue team searched for 2 full days. They found absolutely nothing. Then another discovery changed everything. A patrol ship detected an unusual signal near the disappearance zone. The signal was weak, ancient, and unlike anything ever recorded. Scientists immediately began studying it. Hours later, they made a shocking announcement. The signal was not random noise, it was a warning beacon, one that had been transmitting continuously for thousands of years. The council chamber exploded with arguments. Thousands of years? How was it never discovered? Who created it? Nobody had answers. The beacon carried a short message. Most of it was damaged by age. Only a few words could be translated. The message read, "Danger beyond this point. ... Then the signal ended. The room fell silent again. Even the most stubborn representatives looked uneasy. A warning beacon, older than most civilizations, located near Earth, pointing toward the exact region where the fleet had disappeared. The coincidence was impossible to ignore, yet many council leaders refused to change their position. One representative slammed his hand against his desk. "This is exactly what humans want." Several heads turned toward him. He pointed toward the screen. "They are using fear." The chairman narrowed his eyes. "Explain." The representative stood proudly. "Humans created this deception." A few delegates nodded. "They somehow destroyed the fleet and planted false evidence." The argument quickly gained support after all. It was easier to blame humanity than accept something unknown. Fear often pushed intelligent beings towards simple answers. Unfortunately, simple answers were not always correct. Hours later, the council reached a decision. Another fleet would be sent. This time even larger. This time carrying advanced scanning equipment. This time they would uncover the truth. When the announcement reached Earth, several human officers looked horrified. One officer shook his head. They learned nothing. Another officer spoke quietly. "How many fleets will disappear before they understand?" Nobody answered, because nobody knew. Ethan stood near a window overlooking the night sky. For a moment he simply watched the stars. Then he closed his eyes. He remembered a classified briefing he had received years earlier. A briefing known only to a handful of people on Earth. A briefing containing information so dangerous that even most human governments were unaware of it. The memory still haunted him, especially one sentence. A sentence written in ancient records hidden beneath Earth's surface. "If the gate awakens, do not approach." Ethan opened his eyes far above Earth. The stars looked peaceful, but he knew appearances could be deceiving. 3 days later, the second fleet began its journey. This force was larger than the first. 70,000 warships moved together through hyperspace. The commanders believed they were prepared. They carried better sensors, more weapons, and strict orders to investigate before advancing. Confidence returned to the military. Many believed the mystery would finally be solved. Then the fleet arrived near the same region where the first armada had vanished. Immediately the scanners detected something strange. The dark objects were still there, silent, motionless, massive. But now there were more of them. Hundreds more. The fleet slowed. For the first time, uncertainty spread among the crews. Then every sensor aboard every ship detected the same thing. A signal, not from the objects, not from Earth, but from somewhere deeper in the darkness ahead. The transmission lasted only a few seconds. One frightened communications officer managed to record it. Before the fleet disappeared, the message contained only 6 words. And when those words reached the Galactic Council, pure fear spread across the chamber, because the final transmission said, "The humans were telling the truth." The message hit the Galactic Council like a shockwave. The humans were telling the truth. Only 6 words. Yet those 6 words changed everything. The second fleet was gone. 70,000 warships had vanished without a trace. Just like the first fleet. No battle reports, no distress calls, no wreckage, nothing. For the first time in modern history, fear spread through the council itself. Representatives who once mocked humanity now sat in silence. Many could not even look at each other. The galaxy's greatest military power had lost 2 massive fleets, and nobody understood why. News channels across council space broadcast emergency reports day and night. Citizens demanded answers. Families searched for information about missing soldiers. Entire worlds began questioning whether the council could still protect them. Inside military headquarters, analysts worked without rest. Thousands of experts examined every piece of data collected before the disappearances. The strange objects, the warning beacon, the final transmissions, everything. Then an unexpected discovery appeared. A junior researcher named Selen found something hidden inside ancient navigation records. At first nobody paid attention. The records were over 10,000 years old. Most experts considered them useless, but Selen noticed a pattern. The region near Earth was missing from nearly every ancient star map. Not hidden, not unexplored, removed. Someone had deliberately erased it. When she reported her findings, senior officers dismissed her. Yet Selen refused to quit. She spent 3 days comparing thousands of old maps from different civilizations. The result terrified her. The same area had been erased again and again across history, different species, different time periods, different languages, yet all of them avoided one region of space, the area beyond Earth's outer territories. Finally, her report reached the council chairman. For the first time, he decided to investigate personally. A special meeting was called. Scientists, historians, and military leaders gathered together. Selen stood before them. Her hands shook slightly, but her voice remained steady. Someone wanted this region forgotten. The chairman folded his arms. Why? Selen activated the display. Ancient maps appeared across the room. Each one highlighted the same location. I don't know, she admitted. But every civilization that recorded this area later removed it from their archives. The room grew quiet. A historian leaned forward. How many civilizations? Selen swallowed. At least 37. The answer stunned everyone. 37 civilizations could not accidentally make the same mistake. Something was wrong, very wrong. Then another discovery arrived. An archaeological team on a distant world found fragments of an ancient monument. The monument was older than any known empire. Its surface contained symbols from a forgotten language. For weeks nobody could translate them. Until an artificial intelligence finally recognized a pattern. The translated message was incomplete, but what remained sent chills through the room. Beyond the guardian world lies the forbidden's path. The words appeared on the screen. Nobody spoke for several seconds. Then someone asked the obvious question, what is the guardian world? Nobody knew, at least not immediately. Then another researcher slowly raised a hand. What if it's Earth? The room became silent again. The possibility seemed impossible, yet the evidence continued pointing toward humanity. Earth sat directly beside the Forbidden's region. The warning beacon was near Earth. The disappearances happened near Earth. And now an ancient message mentioned a guardian world. The council chairman immediately ordered a deeper investigation. For the next several days, teams searched ancient archives across the galaxy. Most records were damaged. Many were incomplete, but a pattern slowly emerged, long before the council existed, long before modern civilizations rose to power. Stories spoke of a dangerous region hidden beyond known space, a place explorers were forbidden to enter, a place connected to strange disappearances, and every story ended the same way: nobody returned. Meanwhile, on Earth, Ethan Ward received reports from intelligence agencies. The council was getting closer to the truth, closer than ever before. Several human officials gathered around a conference table. One of them looked nervous. They found the old records. Another officer sighed. It was only a matter of time. Ethan remained silent. He knew the truth better than anyone in the room, and that truth frightened him. Not because of what the council might discover, but because of what they might accidentally awaken, far beyond Earth's borders. A scientific expedition entered the edge of the Forbidden's region. The council had authorized the mission in secret. Officially, they were studying spatial anomalies. Unofficially, they were hunting answers. The expedition consisted of 12 research vessels. Unlike the missing fleets, these ships advanced slowly and cautiously. Every sensor remained active. Every movement was recorded. At first nothing happened. The darkness ahead seemed empty, silent, harmless. Then one of the ships detected an unusual energy reading. The source lay inside a dense cloud of dust and debris. Curiosity quickly overcame caution. The expedition moved closer as the cloud cleared. The crew saw something impossible. A structure massive beyond imagination, larger than moons, older than recorded history. The object floated silently in the darkness. Its surface was covered with strange geometric patterns. No engines, no lights, no visible entrances, yet it was clearly artificial. The crew stared in disbelief. Nobody had ever seen technology like it. The discovery was immediately transmitted back to the council. Panic and excitement spread through the government. At last they had found something real, something connected to the mystery. The expedition carefully approached the structure. Then, without warning, ancient symbols across its surface began glowing, one by one. Lines of blue light spread across the object. Systems that had slept for thousands of years suddenly awakened. Alarm sirens echoed through every research ship. Energy readings exploded across sensor screens. And deep inside the ancient structure, something started moving. The lead scientist watched the data stream across his monitor. His face turned pale, because according to every reading, the structure was not a station, it was not a weapon, and it was not a ship. It was a prison. And after countless ages of silence, the prison had just activated itself. The word spread across the galaxy within hours. Prison. The ancient structure was a prison. Not a station, not a lost city, not a forgotten weapon, a prison. The discovery created panic inside the Galactic Council. For generations, historians believed the oldest civilizations had barely mastered space travel. Now evidence suggested someone had built a structure larger than moons long before recorded history began. And they had built it for one purpose: to keep something locked away. Inside the council chamber, representatives argued endlessly. Some demanded the structure be destroyed, others wanted it studied. A few suggested abandoning the entire region forever. Nobody could agree. Meanwhile, the research expedition remained near the prison. Their sensors continued gathering information. The glowing symbols covered more of the structure every hour. Ancient systems were waking up. The lead scientist, Dr. Varen, watched the data carefully. The prison was producing enormous amounts of energy, yet no source could be identified. It was as if the structure itself generated power from nothing. That alone should have been impossible. Then another strange discovery appeared. The prison was sending signals. At first the signals looked random, but after several hours, researchers noticed a repeating pattern. The same sequence appeared again and again. A message. The scientists immediately began trying to decode it. Back on Earth, Ethan Ward received the reports. His expression darkened. Several officials noticed. One officer leaned forward. "You know what that structure is, don't you?" The room became silent. Everyone looked toward Ethan. For a moment he said nothing. Then he slowly nodded. The reaction was immediate. Questions exploded across the room. What is inside it? Who built it? Why didn't humanity tell anyone? Ethan raised a hand. The room fell quiet. "The answers are dangerous," he said. An officer frowned. "More dangerous than 2 missing fleets?" Ethan looked directly at him. Yes. Nobody spoke after that. The certainty in his voice was impossible to ignore. Far away, Dr. Varen finally achieved a breakthrough. The signal from the prison had been partially translated. The first words appeared on his screen. His heart nearly stopped. The message was ancient, yet surprisingly clear. It read, "Containment status critical." The scientist stared at the words, certain he had made a mistake. He ordered the translation repeated. The result remained the same: containment status critical. The message continued, but much of it was damaged. Only fragments remained. Guardian absent, ... lock weakening, ... do not open, ... The bridge of the research vessel became silent. Nobody liked what they were hearing. Dr. Varen immediately transmitted the findings to the council. The response was instant. Emergency meetings began across dozens of worlds. Military forces entered high alert. And for the first time, some council leaders considered the possibility that humanity had been telling the truth from the beginning. Yet there were still those who refused to believe it. One powerful representative dismissed the warnings completely. "It is an automated system," he argued. "Ancient machines often generate false alerts." Several others agreed. After all, accepting the warning meant accepting something far worse. It meant admitting that an ancient prison existed, and that whatever was inside might still be alive. Days passed. The prison continued activating. More lights appeared across its surface. Massive sections shifted position. Ancient mechanisms moved for the first time in ages. The entire structure seemed to be waking up. Then the biggest discovery arrived. A team scanning the prison's interior located the central containment chamber. The chamber sat deep inside the structure, protected by countless layers of material unknown to modern science. Every researcher expected to find something terrifying inside. A monster, an ancient weapon, a hostile civilization, something. The scans finally penetrated the chamber. The date arrived. Dr. Varon examined it personally. His face lost all color. For several seconds he could not speak. The other scientists grew nervous. "What is it?" one asked. Varon looked up slowly, his voice barely above a whisper. "It's empty." Nobody understood. "What do you mean empty?" "The containment chamber is empty." The room erupted into confusion. That was impossible. The prison existed to hold something. The warning messages clearly referenced containment. The entire structure had been built around a central cell. Yet the cell contained nothing. No life signs, no machines. No remains, nothing. The news reached the council within minutes. Shock spread through the government. Some leaders actually felt relief. If the chamber was empty, perhaps there was no danger after all. Perhaps the prison had failed thousands of years ago. Perhaps whatever had been inside was long gone. Unfortunately, another piece of evidence appeared shortly afterward, and it destroyed that hope. Researchers studying the containment chamber discovered traces of movement. Recent movement. Not ancient. Not thousands of years old. Recent. Something had occupied the chamber. Something enormous. And according to the data, it had left only a few decades earlier. The realization horrified everyone. Whatever had been imprisoned, there was not dead, it was not destroyed, and it had not escaped recently. It had already been free for years. Back on Earth, silence filled the conference room. Human officials listened as the reports arrived. Nobody looked surprised. Nobody looked confused, only worried. One young officer finally spoke. "If they know the chamber is empty, they will ask the next question." Ethan nodded slowly. "They already are," the officer swallowed. "And when they learn the answer?" Ethan looked toward the stars outside the window, his expression grim. "Then they will understand why humanity never wanted them to come here." At that exact moment, deep within the ancient prison, a hidden system activated. Unlike the others, this system had remained dormant, waiting, watching, for thousands of years. Now it finally came online. Ancient screens illuminated. Forgotten records awakened, and one final message began transmitting across the structure. A message nobody was prepared to receive, because it contained the identity of the prisoner and the destination where it had gone. A destination that sent fear through every scientist who saw it. The prisoner had not escaped into deep space. The prisoner had traveled in only one direction, toward Earth. The moment the message reached the Galactic Council, chaos erupted. Representatives stood from their seats. Some shouted, others demanded immediate explanations. A few simply stared at the screen in disbelief. The ancient prison had revealed its final record. The prisoner had left decades ago, and its path led directly toward Earth. For several seconds nobody spoke. The idea seemed impossible. If something so dangerous had traveled to Earth, then why was humanity still alive? Why was the planet still standing? And why had the humans never mentioned it? The council chairman looked exhausted. For the first time since the crisis began, he felt completely lost. Every answer seemed to create 10 new questions. He turned toward the scientists. "Are you certain about the destination?" The lead researcher nodded. "The records are clear." A holographic map appeared above the chamber floor. A glowing line stretched from the ancient prison, across countless light years, ending at one location, Earth. The room fell silent again. Meanwhile, across council space, fear spread faster than ever. News agencies leaked fragments of the report. Citizens learned about the prison, the missing fleets, and now the connection to Earth. Rumors exploded everywhere. Some believed humanity was secretly controlling the prisoner. Others thought humans had made a deal with it. Many feared an invasion was coming. Entire colonies began preparing emergency shelters. Military worlds activated planetary defenses. The galaxy had never faced a mystery like this before. Back on Earth, Ethan Ward sat alone in a secure office. The lights were dim. A report rested on the desk before him. He had already read it several times. Nothing in it surprised him. A soft knock came at the door. "Enter," he said. A military officer stepped inside. His expression was serious. "The council knows about the prison now." Ethan nodded. "I expected that." The officer hesitated. "They also know the prisoner came here." Silence filled the room. Finally, Ethan stood and walked toward the window. Far above, stars filled the night sky. For a moment he simply watched them. Then he spoke quietly. "The truth always catches up eventually." The officer looked worried. "Should we tell them everything?" Ethan's answer came immediately. "No." The officer frowned. "Why not?" Ethan turned toward him. "Because they still think the prisoner is the danger." The officer's eyes widened slightly. "What do you mean?" Ethan said nothing. And somehow that silence felt worse than any answer. Far beyond Earth, the research expedition continued studying the ancient prison. Most of the structure had become active now. Thousands of glowing symbols covered its surface. Hidden chambers opened. Long-forgotten systems awakened. The scientists gathered enormous amounts of information. Then one team discovered something unexpected: a sealed archive. Unlike the prison records, this archive appeared untouched. Its databanks contained millions of files, ancient logs, maps, technical records, and security reports. The researchers immediately began searching through them. Hours later, one file changed everything. The document described the prisoner, not in detail, but enough to reveal something important. The prisoner was never described as a monster, never described as a weapon, never described as an enemy. Instead, one repeated phrase appeared again and again: "Protector entity." The lead scientist stared at the translation, certain it had to be wrong. He checked it 3 times. The words never changed. Protector entity. The information was immediately sent to the council. Confusion replaced fear. How could a protector be locked inside a prison? The description made no sense. A heated debate began. Some argued the translation was faulty. Others believed the ancient builders had used different definitions. But then another file was decoded, and this one contained a warning: containment required for galactic preservation. The room became quiet, a protector, yet dangerous enough to require containment. The contradiction only deepened the mystery. As researchers searched further, they uncovered another shocking fact. The prison had not been built to keep the entity inside. It had been built to keep something else out. Dr. Varon nearly dropped his tablet when he read the report. The prison was not a cage, it was a shield. The entire structure existed to protect the galaxy from something beyond it. The realization sent chills through every scientist involved. If that was true, then the question changed completely. What exactly had the prison been protecting everyone from? And why had the so-called prisoner left? Back in the council chamber, the atmosphere turned grim. Every new discovery made the situation worse. Nothing fit together, nothing made sense. Then an emergency transmission arrived from the edge of council space. A military patrol had encountered something strange. The surviving officers appeared terrified. Their ship had detected a massive object moving between star systems. At first they thought it was a fleet, then sensors revealed the truth. It was a single object, larger than cities, traveling without engines. The patrol attempted communication. The object ignored them. They attempted scanning. Most systems failed instantly. Then the object vanished, not through hyperspace, not through any known technology. It simply disappeared. The patrol's final sensor reading estimated its direction Earth. The report reached humanity only minutes later. Inside the secure government facility, silence filled the command room. Everyone looked toward Ethan. The object's appearance changed everything. One officer spoke softly. "It's moving again." Ethan closed his eyes briefly, then nodded. "Yes." Another officer looked confused. "You know what it is?" Ethan opened his eyes. His expression carried something none of them had seen before. Fear, real fear. "The council thinks the prisoner escaped," he said. "They are wrong." The room became completely silent. Nobody dared interrupt. Ethan looked toward the giant star map displayed on the wall. His voice dropped to almost a whisper. The entity was never escaping from the prison. Several officers exchanged worried looks. Then one finally asked the question everyone feared. If it wasn't escaping, ... Ethan's gaze remained fixed on Earth displayed at the center of the map. His answer chilled every person in the room. It was returning home. The words stayed in the room long after Ethan spoke them. It was returning home. Nobody moved, nobody spoke. The officers simply stared at him. For weeks they had feared an ancient monster, a galaxy-ending weapon, a nightmare from forgotten history. Now Ethan was saying something far more disturbing. The entity's destination was not Earth. Earth was its home. Finally, one officer found his voice. What exactly is this thing? Ethan looked at the faces around him. He had hoped this day would never come. For generations, humanity had protected a secret buried deeper than any government, a secret hidden even from most humans. But the disappearances had changed everything. The truth could no longer remain hidden. It's time, Ethan said quietly, minutes later. The officers followed him through a heavily guarded underground complex. The facility lay beneath a mountain far from any city. Few people knew it existed. Even fewer knew what it contained. Security checkpoints opened one after another. Massive steel doors moved aside. Elevators carried them deeper underground, far deeper than normal military facilities. Eventually they reached a gigantic chamber. The officers stopped in shock. A structure stood in the center. It stretched hundreds of meters upward. Its surface glowed with faint blue light. Ancient symbols covered every side. The symbols matched those found on the prison. The room fell silent. One officer whispered, "How long has this been here?" Ethan answered, "Longer than human civilization." The statement stunned everyone. For years, scientists had searched for humanity's oldest secrets. Yet none of them had ever reported something like this. The structure looked impossibly ancient, as if it had existed before recorded history. Ethan walked toward a control panel. The moment his hand touched it, the chamber awakened. Blue light flooded the room. Ancient screens appeared in the air, and a voice echoed through the chamber. "Guardian access confirmed." The officers exchanged nervous looks. Guardian. The same word appeared repeatedly in the prison records. One of the screens activated. A map of the galaxy appeared. Then another image formed. The ancient prison, followed by Earth. Then dozens of glowing lines connecting them. The system began displaying records, images from thousands of years ago. Star systems, ancient civilizations, massive structures, and something else, human faces. The officers stared in disbelief. The humans shown in the records wore strange clothing, yet they were unmistakably human. One officer shook his head. "That's impossible." Ethan wished it was. The records continued, showing humans traveling among the stars long before modern civilization existed. Human ships crossed regions that modern technology could barely reach. Cities floated in deep space. Entire worlds worked together. The officers watched silently. Everything they knew about history was falling apart. Then the final record appeared, a date so old it seemed absurd. Nearly 100,000 years in the past. The room became completely silent because the image showed humanity building the prison. Nobody could believe it. The ancient structure beyond Earth, the greatest mystery in the galaxy, had been built by humans, not aliens, not forgotten gods. Humans. The officers looked toward Ethan, their faces filled with disbelief. How? Ethan took a deep breath. The truth was erased. The room remained silent. Our ancestors built a civilization far older than anything known today. He pointed toward the ancient records. They explored regions nobody else could reach. The images shifted again, showing a dark area beyond the prison. A region completely black. Even the stars seemed absent. The officers felt uneasy just looking at it. "What is that?" someone asked. Ethan's expression darkened. "That is why the prison was built." The records continued playing. Ancient human fleets gathered near the dark region. Massive defensive structures appeared. Entire systems were transformed into fortresses. Something had terrified humanity enough to create a prison larger than moons. Then another image appeared, and everyone froze. A gigantic shape emerged from the darkness. Not fully visible, only fragments could be seen, yet its size was unimaginable. Planets looked tiny beside it. Several officers instinctively stepped backward. Even the recording felt wrong, as if their minds struggled to process what they were seeing. The ancient record labeled it with a single designation: External Threat Alpha. The officers looked confused. That's what the prison was holding. One asked. Ethan shook his head. No. The answer made the room even colder. The prison was never built to hold the threat. He pointed toward another image. The so-called prisoner appeared. For the first time they saw it clearly. A massive entity made of light, its body constantly changing shape. Neither machine nor biological life. Something completely different. The officers stared silently. This was the being that had left the prison. The being connected to the vanished fleets. The being moving toward Earth. The being the ancient records called Protector Entity. The prison wasn't its cage, Ethan said. It was its station. The officers frowned. What do you mean? Ethan looked at the image. That entity was humanity's guardian. Silence. Nobody knew how to respond. The ancient records continued, showing the entity standing between the dark region and the galaxy. Watching, waiting, protecting. For thousands of years it remained there, alone. The prison existed to strengthen it, support it, help it maintain a barrier against the threat beyond. Then another file appeared, a recent status report, only decades old. The officers leaned closer. The report contained terrible news. The barrier was weakening. The Guardian's power was fading, and the prison could no longer support it. That was why it left, not to attack, not to escape, but because it needed something only Earth could provide. The officers finally understood why humanity had panicked when the fleets approached. The invasion had happened at the worst possible moment. The Guardian had been traveling home, and the fleets had crossed directly into its path. Then alarms suddenly erupted throughout the chamber. Red lights flashed. Ancient systems activated. A warning appeared across every screen. Ethan's face turned pale. For the first time since the crisis began, he looked genuinely afraid. One officer read the message aloud, his voice shaking. Guardian arrival confirmed. The room froze. Then a second line appeared beneath it. And that message was far worse, because it revealed what the Guardian had been protecting the galaxy from all along. External Threat Alpha has awakened. The warning stayed frozen on every screen. External Threat Alpha has awakened. No one in the chamber spoke. The silence felt heavy, almost alive. The officers slowly turned toward Ethan, waiting for an explanation, waiting for hope. But Ethan did not speak immediately. He simply stared at the glowing system, as if he was listening to something no one else could hear. Finally, he spoke. It has started. A junior officer stepped forward. Started what? Ethan looked at him. The reason the Guardian left the prison. The room tightened with fear. One of the officers pointed at the system display. If that thing is awake, then where is it now? Ethan closed his eyes for a moment, then answered, Close. Outside the underground facility, alarms began to sound across military bases. Satellite networks detected massive gravitational disturbances near the outer system. Something huge was moving, not in hyperspace, not through known technology, but through space itself, as if reality bent around it. Inside the command room, reports kept arriving, one after another, fleet patrols disappearing from sensors, communication signals breaking apart mid-transmission, entire monitoring stations going dark. Then came the final confirmation. A deep space observation platform captured a brief image. It lasted less than a second, but it was enough, a shape impossible in size, stretching across thousands of kilometers, surrounded by broken light, and behind it, something even worse, a shadow that did not behave like anything natural. The analyst who viewed the image dropped his headset. This is not a ship, he whispered. Ethan looked at the screen. His face remained calm, but his hands tightened slightly. No, he said quietly. It is not a ship. A long pause followed. Then another officer asked, If the Guardian left the prison to stop that thing, why is it still coming? No one wanted to hear the answer. But Ethan gave it anyway, because the Guardian failed to stop it alone. That sentence changed everything. Across the council, panic exploded again. The same leaders who once mocked humanity now demanded alliance talks. Emergency meetings were called across dozens of systems. Entire fleets were redirected toward Earth, not to invade this time, but to survive. Because Earth was now seen as the only connection to the Guardian entity, and the Guardian was the only known force that had ever stood against external threat Alpha. Back on Earth, Ethan and the officers moved quickly through the underground facility. Deep within the structure, another system had activated, one that had not been used in thousands of years, a final protocol. Ethan stopped in front of a large, circular platform. The ancient symbols around it glowed brighter with every second. One officer looked uneasy. "What does that do?" Ethan answered, "It calls it back." The officer froze. "Calls what back?" Ethan did not answer directly. Instead, he stepped onto the platform. The system scanned him instantly. A deep mechanical voice filled the chamber. "Guardian signal request detected. Authorization pending." The officers watched nervously, then the system continued. "Warning. Entity is engaged with external threat Alpha. Interference may result in total system collapse." A tense silence followed. Then Ethan spoke clearly. "Send it anyway." For a moment, nothing happened. Then the entire chamber lit up. A beam of light shot upward through layers of rock and sky, reaching beyond Earth itself, into space, across the galaxy. A signal older than any known civilization began transmitting again. And far away, something answered, in deep space. Near the edge of the unknown darkness, the Guardian entity suddenly stopped. Its shifting form stabilized for the first time in centuries. The fleets around it, human and council ships together, watched in silence. Then the Guardian turned, and for the first time, it spoke across open space, not to the fleets, not to the council, but to Earth. Its voice was not sound, it was thought, direct, clear, unavoidable. "Home signal received, back on Earth." Ethan closed his eyes. "It's coming," he said softly. At the same moment, external threat Alpha emerged fully from the darkness. No longer hidden, no longer distant, it filled the void between stars. A presence that bent light and gravity around it. Entire systems flickered out of existence as it advanced. The combined fleets of the galaxy formed defensive lines. Weapons charged, shields activated. But every commander knew the truth. They were not enough. Then, suddenly, space itself tore open near Earth's orbit. A massive structure emerged, not a ship, not a station, but something far older. The Guardian had returned, its form brighter than before, stronger than the last transmission recorded. And between Earth and the approaching darkness, it positioned itself, standing like a wall against the end of the galaxy. For a brief moment, everything stopped. Even external threat Alpha paused, as if recognizing an old enemy. Then the final confrontation began. Energy unlike anything known erupted across space. Stars flickered, gravity shifted. Reality itself bent under the force of two ancient powers colliding. From Earth, the officers watched in silence. One whispered, "Can it win?" Ethan looked up at the sky. For the first time, he allowed himself a small, tired breath. "It doesn't need to win," he said. "It only needs to hold long enough." A deep vibration echoed through the planet. The signal system on Earth reached its final stage. Ancient defenses fully activated. Hidden across oceans, mountains, and underground vaults, humanity's forgotten network came online at last, and Earth itself began to awaken. Not as a planet, but as a command world once more. The final message from the Guardian appeared across every system in the galaxy. One line, meant for all civilizations to hear. "If Earth falls, nothing remains.